Welcome to this Absolute Beginners Blender tutorial number 21. This is the last tutorial in this series. I will continue to make tutorials, but I will name them Accomplished Beginners Blender 3D and then a number Tutor. So if you already have the experience that you need to go with the Accomplished Beginners tutorials, that's the way to start. Otherwise, you want to start at the very first Absolute Beginners tutorial. I'll switch to wireframe mode by pressing Z, and then I'll press the play button to demonstrate what this animation is. It's a camera and a light that moves down this tunnel, and it stops at the end, and that there's a certain amount of drama that unfolds there. I'll press Z again to go back to solid mode, and that's what we're going to render. Let's look at the render settings. There's 350 frames, 24 frames per second, full HD resolution. Everything else is default. And down here, I've decided to put these images, this image sequence, in a folder that is a subfolder to where the Blender file is. So that means you have a double // and then the name of the folder, and then a \/ and then the name of the images. The image will be named, in this case, tunnelwalk 0001.jpg up to tunnelwalk0350.jpg. So I'll just show you you just have this here. I'll just type in tunnelwalk like that, and I accept that. So that's what you have to do when you haven't done this before. Then you see it will just have that \/ automatically. And I have chosen JPEG as my output format, and we're ready to render this. So I'll press the animation button, and the render starts up. I'll bring up the activities handler, and you can see how heavy the load on the processor is. So if you need to have adequate cooling on your processor, otherwise you might get some problems with it. And this is just to show you that running renders puts a strain on your system. So you need to have adequate cooling. That's also a reason why you want to render to an image sequence, because then you can render in segments and not have to render the entire sequence at once. And you can see how these images appear here in this folder, one after the other. And since I already have completed this, I will escape out of this, and we'll look at the next step in this process. And that is, we will go to the video editing layout, and we will add a video sequence. Add image. And now, since I've been here before, you'll just have to decide that you have to go to whatever folder that your images end up in. So you need to make sure that you keep track of that. And to select all of these images, I put the cursor in the top left corner, and then I press the left mouse button, and then I move the mouse over the entire surface like this, and all the images are selected, and I'll add image strip. Now there's a strip down here that appears, and if I cover it with the cursor and then press the right mouse button, I can move it, and I can move it in any direction like this, but I want it to be there, and I stop there, and then so I move the mouse a little bit here, so that's important to remember that. You can press the shift key to move the mouse more precisely, and then I'll press the left mouse button. Then the strip stays where I put it. So now we have prepared ourselves to render this to a video file. And then I can choose either composting or default. I choose composting. You still have the same panel here, the render panel. And the important part here is that the sequencer checkbox is checked, because that means if there is a sequence in the video sequence editor and this box is checked, it will render that. If this is not checked, it will render the scene. So if you have a scene and you've done this maneuver, so you have already rendered your scene to an image sequence, and then put that in the video editor, and then you make changes to the scene and render another section of it, and forget to decheck this, to uncheck this, then it will just render what you have in the video sequence, or in the video editor, that sequence. So if sequencer is checked, then it will render what's in the video, if there is anything. Otherwise, it will render what's in the 3D view. So if that makes no sense, you'll just have to try that out for yourself. And here I've decided to put this in a subfolder. It's called render for no, I have decided to put it in this folder here, render video for tutorial. And I'm still calling it tunnel walk, and I accept that. And I have to make one more change. I have to change it to an movie file, and I'm choosing AVI codec at this point. So now we're ready to, from this image sequence that we do have in the video editor here, render a video file. So I'll just can click the animation button or Control F12. And the rendering starts right up, and you can see how quickly it moves. We're already over 70, and 70 frames. And I can also go to the folder, and you can see how this video file, it doesn't update that quickly, but it's increasing in size. And after 350 frames, we'll have the complete render, and that's just here in a few seconds. So it's completed, it's 2 gig, and I'll play this here in the video, in the media player. I've added some illustrative sounds to this, and this is where the drama unfolds. You can see that the walls in this tunnel are alive. There's a live goo there. So, and this sound I'm playing from a different source than the computer. So this topic here, animation of textures, I'll talk about in the next series of tutorials, the Accomplished Beginners Blender Tutorials. And I'll just go back to the default here. And so this is it for this tutorial. You do it in 2 steps. You create your scene, your animation, render that to an image sequence, bring that image sequence into the video editor, and then you render that to a video file. And this little checkbox here is relevant because that means that if there is something in the video editing, if there's something here, it will render it if that checkbox is checked. Otherwise, it will just render the scene. So that's it for this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you find it useful, and I'll be back with more tutorials in a little while. And thank you for listening, and goodbye.